the pain like.
Hey guys, dearyoongi here, and welcome back to my channel. In the past, I started a mini-series on my channel where we started to explore the different ways in which K-pop companies are stealing our money. First up, we looked at paid messaging apps such as Bubble, and then we looked into albums. In today's video, we are going to be looking at how companies are using the thrill of something we all know and love to get as much money out of fans as possible: concerts. I mentioned this little disclaimer in the beginning of the first parts, but for those who didn't get to see them, I do just want to preface this video by saying, even though it may sound like I'm all anti-capitalism, I completely understand that K-pop is at its very core a business. I've worked in sales and marketing for years, and I'm very familiar with how consumerism works and the methods and madness companies use to achieve sales targets. I am in no way trying to tell fans how to enjoy things or not to consume any of these things, because there is nothing wrong with choosing to support your faves if you are in a position to do so. At the end of the day, it is your money that you are spending, and I am in no position to judge. This video is just a fun way for me to use my knowledge to highlight some things I have noticed. Okay, I hope that makes sense, and I'm sorry for the long introduction. I haven't spoken to you guys for like nearly 3 weeks. I miss it. Without further ado, let's get started. So to start off, we're going to be looking at the different things K-pop companies do when it comes to concerts to get as much money out of us as possible and why, before later exploring how they get away with this and what we as fans can do to at least make a small difference, if not stop it altogether. The very first thing we need to look at is one that I'm sure irritates a lot of us: last minute tour announcements. I know for certain I'm not the only one who has seen an announcement for a group I like's upcoming tour and then checked the dates and been like, oh my god, that's in literally a month's time. Oh, and tickets come out in less than a week, and the concert is not in my city, sometimes not even in the country. How on earth am I supposed to budget for this? The devil's advocate in me would like to tell you guys that this isn't done on purpose, and the reason why tours get announced so last minute is because companies have so much to organize, whether it be in terms of finding appropriate venues, planning the tour route, its contents, the group's availability, etc. And while there may be some truth to this, anyone who have planned a large-scale event before will know that organization can and should take place ridiculously far in advance. So informing the audience of the time, date, and location at the very last minute should not happen. That could very easily be avoided. Also, I won't give companies the benefit of the doubt, because many of us will have been to concerts or events for other artists around the world, which we were informed of months in advance. I remember in the past having tickets to see artists like a year before the event was due to take place. So why do K-pop companies have to insist on dropping tour dates at the very last minute? This is done to create a sense of urgency. If you haven't heard this term before, a sense of urgency is something businesses use to convince customers that they need to complete a purchase much sooner, like now. A customer is made to feel like they have to complete a purchase as soon as possible before it's too late, or they could potentially run the risk of missing out entirely. It is much easier to create a sense of urgency when it comes to something like an event, as opposed to a physical product which people know can be restocked, because something like a concert is kind of seen as a one-time opportunity. Now you may be thinking, well, if this was the case, then why don't all artists around the world take advantage of this fact and aim to create a sense of urgency when they drop tour dates? Well, unfortunately, we as K-pop fans are in a very unique position where, because the genre is still seen as much more niche around the world, us global fans are much more vulnerable, and companies are very aware of the desperation that some fans have to see their favorite artists live, and therefore they know full well that they can drop anything and everything possible on us and we will make it happen, just in case it's our only opportunity to do so, even if this does mean having to find hundreds of pounds at the last minute. Now, on a very similar topic, another thing K-pop companies are doing with concerts, because they know they can, is extortionate ticket prices. I will say this isn't just a K-pop problem, and I think ever since we came out of the pandemic, concert ticket prices have just skyrocketed. But because K-pop concert tickets were always a little bit more expensive to begin with, I think we K-pop fans have really seen some of the worst of ticket price hiking. Things seem to have gone literally crazy when it comes to K-pop concert ticket prices, so much so that even some bigger artists who people have waited years to see are struggling to sell tickets. tickets. I think I might have shown this in my previous video somewhere along the line, but to see somebody as huge as IU struggling to sell tickets, I was seeing them at like £300 on general sale, not even from resellers where you would expect it. That's just crazy and unexpected, and probably not something that would have happened if the tickets were more reasonably priced. I still remember the days where you could see your favourites for like £40, if that, maybe even less. Now you're probably looking near a £100 minimum, unless you want to sit on the moon and look down at the venue with a telescope. Now don't get me wrong, a part of this may not always be down to the company's discretion, and their prices could very well be reflecting higher costs being demanded from venues and other vendors, etc. But even an increase in venue hire cost simply does not help us justify the major price increases we have seen of like over 200% in some cases. So again, this leaves us to explore, why are companies doing this to us? And I think this is to be as opportunistic as possible. When we use the term opportunist, this is something somebody does when they take advantage of the circumstances they've been provided with, without paying any mind or regards to how this will affect others. Because like we said earlier, concert ticket prices in general seem to have increased a lot since the pandemic hit, and people are still paying them regardless. K-pop companies will have taken note of this. And because K-pop concert ticket prices used to be generally slightly higher than some Western artists to begin with, again because of that uniqueness of the genre that we already discussed, I absolutely see a possibility that K-pop companies will have looked at this and realized they could absolutely use this to their advantage by raising ticket prices so much higher than they need to stay in line with cost increases, simply because they can. We can question it all we like, but we can't do anything about it, or so they think. Onto that later, because they know fans want to see their favourite artists, no matter what the price. Another thing we need to discuss that K-pop companies do to get more money out of us when it comes to concerts is merchandise, and specifically light sticks. Even though light sticks are a form of merchandise, you know what I mean. Honestly, I was debating making this topic in particular its entire own video in this series, because there is some really weird and wonderful merchandise out there that we could discuss. But we'll look at this in particular to do with how concert merchandise just seems to have such a crazy markup on its price. I'm sure a lot of us have been there, where you're at a concert and you think, oh, I would love to get something to commemorate this moment by, a t-shirt or a jumper to support my favourite artists as well while I'm here. But then you get to the merch stalls after queuing for God knows how long, you see how expensive everything is and your eyes just kind of pop out of your head. But because you've been queuing for so long, you kind of just feel obliged to buy something to make all that time you spent in line worth it. And the reason why I mention light sticks separately is because these are the key staple item that a lot of fans will want to have at a concert. Now I know for a fact I've defo spoken about this before, and if you haven't watched any of my previous videos, then you might not know this, but those who have, you will know my thoughts on light sticks. I'm personally not a fan. I just couldn't justify spending that money on something that I would rarely use. But with that being said, I completely understand how when physically at a concert and you don't already have one, a fan might feel like they want to purchase a light stick to be part of the experience and to enjoy syncing it up and waving it around in a sea of other people also doing that. But the markup on the price of those light sticks at a concert is wild. Again, because they know it's the item fans will want the most. And what gets me even more too is that I have seen some artists, I do not want to name names or point fingers, where if you already have a light stick at home, you might not even be able to use it anyway, because there are different versions. And sometimes when a newer version is released, the older one is no longer compatible. So you wouldn't be able to sync it up at a concert anyway, which is absolutely crazy to me when you've already forked out the money for one and you'd have to do it again, basically. So if you want to join in that fan-light experience, you would have no choice but to purchase a new one, which you might just have to do while you're there for an easy life, even though it's not so easy on your wallet. I have to keep bringing us back to that question of why are K-pop companies doing this to fans, because it does greatly help us understand the things we're often so mad about. And this one comes down to the emotional state we're expected to be in and the influence of the environment. In reality, I'm sure we all know that you could find any of this concert merchandise for much cheaper online, even still from official sources. But because you're already there and in the moment and just so excited to see your faves, a lot of us will forget all the money we already had to pay for tickets tickets, travel, accommodation, etc., you're more likely to just take the hit and pay that extra bit of money, not realizing that we are in fact paying such a crazy markup just for the novelty of getting it there and then at the concert. And companies know this. They know that K-pop fans at concerts surrounded by merchandise with their faves on it and seeing other people buying things would be like putting a kid in a candy shop. They're banking on you not being able to resist when you're in the atmosphere, making it easier for you to justify a purchase you might not have considered normally because the perceived value is much higher there and then in the moment. Additionally, these companies understand the immediacy of the purchase. Having the item right there and then adds to the value. It's kind of a psychological tactic, and not to bring it back to marketing, but it is a marketing strategy where labels try to maximize their profit by kind of banking on the emotional state of you while you're there, and again, that sense of urgency. I want it now, I'm here. Now that we've got the ball rolling and started to think about all these things companies are doing, I'm sure we can think of so many more ways in which companies are trying to get money out of us when it comes to concerts. So I'd love to hear any more you guys have noticed in the comments. But for now, let's start looking at how companies get away with doing these sorts of things. And unfortunately, it's kind of like we already touched upon in all of our why explanations. Companies get away with capitalizing at the expense of fans because they know they hold this power. Although we have seen K-pop grow exponentially over recent years and around the globe, it is still seen as very niche, and therefore availability of content for fans, especially those of us overseas, is still unfortunately very limited. Therefore, companies can sit very comfortably in the knowledge that no matter how ridiculous the circumstances become for us as fans, concert tickets will still sell and fans will still attend. And I can't really blame fans for this because I myself fully relate and understand how it feels to be in this situation. As a fan who would do anything just to get the opportunity to see your favorite artist even once because they've never toured your location. Some of you guys may know this if you discovered my channel from my video about the K-pop Flex Festival. If so, hi, thanks for sticking around this long. But I live in the UK, and the only reason I attended K-pop Flex in Frankfurt, Germany, was because I knew this would be my one opportunity and only chance to see Mamamoo because it looked like they were never going to tour Europe as a group. So I had to spend hundreds on tickets, flights, accommodation, and book time off work. I did everything possible to make it happen. So I cannot judge any fans who would do the same for their faves, because companies do put us in this position where we as fans are at their beck and call because we feel completely powerless in the situations to do otherwise. In essence, the scarcity of opportunity and intense dedication that they know fans are so renowned for creates this like perfect scenario for companies where they know they can transform that passion into profit with very little effort and kind of while being as cheeky as possible. And as K-pop itself continues to grow, this cycle will continue. So before we close out, I've spent this whole video trying to inform you guys of how poorly we are treated when it comes to K-pop concerts. So what? Are we supposed to just sit back and take it? What could we actually do as fans to lessen the impact of some of these methods on us? Well, first thing I have to say is it's not going to be easy, and I think we all know that. In order for any of these things we could do to actually make a difference to actually work, K-pop fans would have to rally together in their thousands to show these companies that we do have strength in numbers. And that wouldn't be easy to make happen, but considering the strength of K-pop fans to support our faves, imagine if we could all use this to support each other. I know none of us want to appear unsupportive of our favourite groups and want to purchase their tickets for concerts, sure, but there are other ways we can still support artists without letting companies take advantage of us, and to stop companies thinking they can throw whatever crazy requests they want at us, we as fans need to take a stand and refuse to pay the extortionate prices, or at least demand greater transparency when it comes to the insane ticket prices and where they're coming from. We need to demand more notice for future concerts to allow attendees time to actually organise their trips, raise more awareness across fandoms about these unfair practices until the companies have no choice but to comment on them and make changes. This can sound like an impossible task when the companies are so large and we kind of feel so small and powerless sometimes, but there have been some examples in the past where fans have been able to make a difference. I think I remember seeing not long ago that shinee fans in Korea were not happy with the venue chosen for the group's 15th anniversary concert. This caused such an uproar with complaints that one of the biggest K-pop labels, SM Entertainment, listened to fans and upgraded the venue. So change is possible. I know we sometimes feel powerless, but we do have to remember that we are the consumers, and as the provider, it is their job to meet our demand, or else we could very easily take it away if we wanted to. While there would be challenges when trying to do something like this, the potential for positive change is so significant that it makes it well and truly worth it. For anything to change, K-pop fans would need to work collectively to voice our concerns and put pressure on companies to adopt fairer practices. We could leverage the power of the community, kind of like I'm trying to do with this video, and as fans we can advocate for more ethical standards, not even just for us but for idols too. There is no issue with asking companies to take more accountability. It is actually within our rights to do so as the consumer if we wanted to. At this point, I think we can look at it from the view of, what do we have to lose? Okay guys, and that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, or maybe even felt like you learned something, or if it got you thinking about something you may not have before from a different angle. If you did enjoy this one, please give it a thumbs up, and I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to be the first to hear whenever I upload, and I will see you next time. Bye guys!